Yo, what is going on, guys? Membro here, back at it with another college football weekly podcast. Another great week of college football. So let's get right into it. The AP poll just dropped as of recording this. So I want to go over to the AP poll, and then we can, well, actually, let's start with my top 10 and my top takeaways. So let's start with that. So posted this on X, Twitter, whatever, my week 6 takeaways. So first takeaway, Georgia's the number one team in the country. I had my doubts when they really struggled at Auburn, but against a ranked Kentucky team that had looked pretty good up until that point, they beat Florida very handily. Overall, they looked like they had a pretty good defense. That all went out the window. You look over here. Georgia beats Kentucky 51-13. Again, they were in Athens. I think one of, I don't know if this is underrated, but one of the biggest advantages is Georgia in Athens. Their home field advantage is very big. It seems like whenever they play at home, these past, ever since really Kirby Smart has been at the helm, I'd be interested to see what the record is for Georgia at home since Kirby Smart, because whenever they play at home, it is dominant, or at least they're able to grind out a win like we saw against South Carolina, where the defense steps up. They always find a way to win, especially in Athens. And in this one, it was a kind of a rare Georgia night game, and they just blew Kentucky out the doors. It was all over. Michigan also dominating against Minnesota. But anyway, Oklahoma is back. Dylan Gabriel outplayed Quinn Ewers, and I think you got to now look at Dylan Gabriel as maybe a Heisman contender. See the picture there. Oklahoma, and you look at their schedule, it is very, very possible for them to go undefeated the rest of the way and win out. Oklahoma overall looked very good. Their defense looked good. Dylan Gabriel is able to, the defense came up with big stops when they needed to. Dylan Gabriel outplays Quinn Ewers, and Oklahoma found a way to win. I would love to see a Big 12 championship with those two teams. That would be best case scenario, with Texas trying to get revenge, with Oklahoma trying to get one more win to go to the playoff. That would be really cool. Big 12 championship game. Louisville is another contender in the ACC. After they beat Notre Dame, Sam Hartman throws 3 interceptions. He played just honestly really bad. Notre Dame is out of playoff contention again, and only really just halfway through the season. This is another disappointing year for the Irish. And Louisville, you look at them, they're another contender in the ACC. They're 6-0 now. I don't believe they even have to play Florida State. So they have a very possible schedule for them to go out. And remember, the ACC is just the top 2 teams now, like with the Pac-12, with the Big 12. Just top 2 teams for the ACC. So Louisville is in a prime position to run the table and actually make it to the ACC championship game. And who knows, this would be a really cool kind of underdog story, feels like, for Louisville. They really, honestly, they haven't been this good since Lamar Jackson. And even then, I saw a stat, they haven't been 6-0 since something like 2013. So even better than when they had Heisman winner Lamar Jackson. So Louisville, really big win. Celebrities were there like Donovan Mitchell and Jack Harlow, and they get the win. Speaking of the ACC, and an ACC, what we thought was an ACC contender, the Miami Hurricanes, a coaching catastrophe. Mario Cristobal refuses to kneel the ball. There's 30-something seconds left in the game. He decides to run the ball. They fumble. Georgia Tech then goes down and scores a last-second touchdown. The Hurricanes, Mario Cristobal is cooked. You see all the fans are calling for him to be fired right away. I don't know if the Hurricanes will really do that, but I think he'll probably be fired at the end of the season. This is a killer mistake against a Georgia Tech team that is really just not that good. Alabama and USC escape. Let's start with Alabama. They play Texas A&M, and these games are always very close, especially when it's in that 12th man Aggie Stadium. And Alabama is able to find a way to win. Jalen Milroe, again, he hooks up with the tight end Burton multiple times. He had a very good game. Jalen Milroe, you can see he's slowly improving. Again, Alabama, they're just kind of slowly getting better and better. And I think this is kind of what you want if you're a Bama fan. If you're going to have a loss in the season, you want it early. You want it so that the team can learn from their mistakes, so that Jalen Milroe can kind of grow throughout the season. You get bigger, you get stronger. And you look at the West, the SEC West elsewhere, LSU doesn't look that good. Ole Miss, obviously, we saw they got beat by Bama. Auburn, maybe they tested Georgia. Maybe they can test Alabama. But overall, Alabama definitely has a path back to the college football playoff. Especially considering their one loss is an out-of-conference loss against Texas. USC, they barely escape in multiple overtimes against Arizona. Now, Arizona, they're not the worst of the worst in the Pac-12. I'd say they're kind of mid-range Pac-12. They fell to like 3-3 though. USC is not a top 10 team. They showed that they were horrible. This defense is not good at all. They really couldn't stop Arizona a lot. Defense did get the last stop of the game, but that was only because Caleb Williams put them in that position. Without Caleb Williams, with a even above average quarterback, this USC team is probably like 500 at this point. They barely beat Colorado. Now they barely beat Arizona. It's going to catch up to USC. They got Oregon on the schedule. It's going to catch up to the Trojans. And if they don't fix this defense, they're not going to be able to outscore, because they're going to run into big time defenses like Utah's, like Oregon's. They're going to run into very good, competent defenses that will be able to at least slow down Caleb Williams. And then you're going to have to rely on the defense, which is proved to be pretty much non-reliable. So USC is in trouble, I think, and they're not really a top 10 team. Yes, they're still undefeated. The season is far from over, but they have some things to clean up. And Drake May is back in the Heisman race. Drake May passes for over 400 yards. North Carolina balls out. If we can go over, see kind of the stats for that game. They beat Syracuse 40-7. Drake May passes for 442 yards and 3 touchdowns. And North Carolina is another undefeated team in that ACC that's looking pretty good. And maybe they can sneak their way up into this top 10. I got them on the outside looking in, I believe. We can go to my top 10 now. Let's go down to the top 10. Number 1, Georgia, again, because they kind of silenced my doubts with that huge win over a pretty good Kentucky team. Number 2 is Ohio State. A lot of teams, or a lot of people were complaining that Maryland 5-0, why aren't they in the top 25? Well, they got the doors blown off them against Ohio State. And Ohio State, again, another huge win. And they're obviously the tests are going to come against Penn State and Michigan State. We just have to wait for those. We just have to wait and see who is the legit Big Ten team. Because out of these 3 teams, you look at, Penn State and the Michigan, I have them all in a row. You can arrange the Big Ten teams however you want, really. Because overall, when you look at it, yeah, probably Ohio State has the toughest schedule, then Penn State, then Michigan. So you can order it like that, and that's how I ordered it, just considering schedule. Again, I think the Big Ten should probably get rid of their divisions, because how much more fun would it be to see a Ohio State versus Penn State Big Ten championship, or Ohio State versus Michigan, Michigan versus Penn State Big Ten championship, instead of like a Michigan versus Iowa Big Ten championship, or Michigan versus Wisconsin. Honestly, those teams are not on the level of these top 3 teams that are all in the same division in the Big Ten. Number 5, Florida State. Again, they pull out a win. A little shaky here and there against Virginia Tech, but they're able to handle Virginia Tech. Florida State, again, they have to be the front runners for in the ACC. And then I have number 6. I put Oklahoma at number 6. I just thought that was a good place for them for now for Oklahoma. Again, they can run the table and end up in the top 4, really. Because you look at the teams ahead of them, there's 3 teams ahead of them that all play each other. So Oklahoma definitely has a path to get up to maybe even like number 2 or something. Then we got Washington followed by Oregon. Number 7 versus number 8 next week. That is the game to watch. Game day is going to be in Seattle. That is the game to watch. This is, to me, an early Pac-12 championship preview, almost. Because these 2 teams so far have shown that they are the best in the Pac-12. USC has looked shaky. Washington State just lost to UCLA, who lost to Utah. You know, who lost to Oregon State, who lost to Washington State. Again, I was literally talking about it last week. A whole circle of beating up on each other. And at this point, I think Washington and Oregon are the Pac-12's best hopes for playoffs. Obviously, USC is there, and if they can fix some things, they can climb back in. But for me, as you see, they are in the honorable mention section of the top 10. So Washington, Oregon, and then followed by Texas. I moved Texas down to number 9, and then Alabama at number 10, just because, obviously Texas has that head-to-head win. I'll keep Texas in the top 10 for now. I think to me, this top 10 makes a lot of sense, but I want to know what you guys think. Leave that in the comments below, or if you're watching like on Spotify, you can leave it on the little reply section as well. And then honorable mentions: North Carolina and USC, both undefeated. USC has been tested, but not against necessarily great teams. And then North Carolina, they're just kind of cruising their way, and we'll see when they actually play some big boy teams. So let's go over to the new AP top 25. So Georgia and Michigan are going to stay at 1 and 2. And obviously Texas was at number 3. They're going to be moving down. So Ohio State moves to number 3. Florida State at number 4. Okay. You look at all these teams had pretty big wins. These top 4 teams. You can definitely make the case that these are the 4 best teams in the country right now. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Florida State. And this, looking at it, this could easily be what it ends up in the playoff. In the final rankings. Oklahoma will move up to number 5. Now, I had Oklahoma, I believe, at number 6. I had Penn State above them. Oklahoma at number 5. That's a big win. And you can kind of tell, I think, the AP voters, they really liked Texas. And they probably still kind of like Alabama. So that means Oklahoma beating Texas moves them way up to number 5. That's okay. Penn State at number 6. Washington and Oregon stay at the same place. Oklahoma, probably the biggest jump. They move up 7, and then Texas moves down to number 9. USC is still at number 10. I would move Bama ahead of USC. Bama, they're kind of starting to look better. Like, as the season goes on, Bama's looking better and USC is looking worse. North Carolina follows Alabama at number 12. Ole Miss at number 13. That's interesting. Our biggest jumper, though, is Louisville up to number 14. They jump 11 spots. I honestly put Louisville above Ole Miss. Again, Ole Miss, I don't have a lot of faith in them because you look at LSU, their defense is pretty atrocious. And Ole Miss, I'm just not as high on Ole Miss. You look at Oregon State at number 15. Utah jumps up 2 spots, being in a bye, as well as Duke jumps up. All these teams from byes. Interesting there. Washington State, after losing to UCLA, moves down, and UCLA will stay at number 18, it looks like. Then we have Tennessee at number 19, and then Notre Dame falling 11 spots. I think they're the biggest drop. They fall to number 21. They got 2 losses on the season. They're eliminated from playoff contention. Real disappointment for the Irish. LSU stays in the top 25. I don't think they should have been in there to begin with. Kansas At number 23, then we got Kentucky after losing to Georgia. They fall 4 spots. And Miami, they fall 8 spots. They were actually pretty high. And they get their first defeat. You're looking at, I think, Wyoming. Wyoming actually beat a top 25 Fresno. I think you should put Wyoming in there, honestly. Otherwise, I guess I agree with the top 25 for the most part. I would switch a couple teams around. I'd put Louisville a bit higher than Ole Miss. This Pac-12, this is the battle of like the middle tier Pac-12. It looks like Oregon's like all these teams beating up on each other. Oregon State, Utah, UCLA, and Washington State. Honestly, you could arrange them however you want because they all beat each other. So Oregon State's the highest. Washington State is the lowest. Okay. I guess that makes sense for the most part. Overall, that's probably going to be it. Thank you guys all for watching and listening. Big game I'm definitely going to try to watch is Oregon and Washington. Top 10 matchup. I believe this is just the second matchup with 2 top 10 teams, and the first one I think was Alabama and Texas, and that lived up to the hype. So hopefully this one does too. This is Oregon's first really big test. This is Washington's first really big test. If you want my prediction, I want Oregon, obviously. I'm kind of partial. I want Oregon. But just looking at it, the home field advantage in the Pac-12 has been astounding. The home team has won nearly every time. You look at all those matchups with like UCLA, Utah, Oregon State, Washington State. All those matchups, the home team won. So when you look at this in the Pac-12, I think you got to give the edge to Washington, but just narrowly. We will see, though. Both, I think, are very evenly matched. And I think this could be a preview to a Pac-12 championship game. It'll be really interesting to see. Is this Washington's year? Is this finally Oregon's year? We will see. Thank you guys all for watching and listening. Peace.